Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today is going to be my spoiler-free movie review for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. This was one of my most anticipated movies of 2023, and I gotta say, I was really disappointed. When I walked out of the theater, that disappointment just really set in, and I had a similar feeling when I watched Thor: Love and Thunder not too long ago, and it just blew my mind that I didn't enjoy this movie as much as I thought it would. Like, after watching all of the trailers, I was like, this thing looks incredible. Basically, what the movie is about is the Ant family goes down to the quantum realm and Kang is there. He's basically this dictator that's running everything. He's a really bad guy. He wants to conquer the multiverse, and the Ant family has to stop him. That's really all I can say without giving too much away. And one other thing that I want to mention before we dive into my actual review of the movie is I want to talk about the Rotten Tomatoes score, because it is all over the place. As of right now, the critic score is 48%, which is extremely low for the MCU. There's only one other movie with a rotten score in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that is the Eternals. But something that I find interesting is that the audience score is 84%, so clearly the vast majority of people are liking this movie, and I totally understand why. Like, if you're the average person, so not an MCU diehard fan or not a comic book diehard fan, I totally understand why, you know, you could watch this movie and be like, yeah, that was solid. Obviously, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but me personally, I did not really like this movie. So guys, the way I'm going to structure this review is first talking about the positives and then the negatives, and then giving you guys my final rating out of 10. So let's dive right into the review. Now, my first positive is going to be all about this guy behind me, which is Kang the Conqueror. He's played by Jonathan Majors, and I think Jonathan Majors does a very good job introducing us to this Conqueror version of Kang. He's a badass, he's really serious, he never jokes, which I love because I want that villain to be that stereotypical, like, serious, evil type of character. I don't really want him cracking jokes and being lighthearted or anything. I want this to be a serious threat, and so far so good. Kang is here, and he is ready to mess some people up and mess some timelines up. Every single time Jonathan Majors is on screen, you can just feel his presence, and those are my favorite scenes out of the entire movie. And I gotta say, I absolutely love his costume. Like, it is one of my favorite MCU costumes to date, and I need the Hot Toys figure of Kang the Conqueror. I think it's gonna look incredible. Literally everything about Kang, like his backstory, his costume, the performance from Jonathan Majors, everything about him was great. There was something that they did with Kang that I didn't really like. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's a spoiler, but I had a pretty big issue with what I'm talking about. I know it sounds kind of dumb because I can't tell you exactly what it is, but if you've seen the movie, you probably know what I'm talking about. I do wish he got a little bit more screen time too, considering this is like his homecoming party to the MCU and the introduction to him being the big bad for Phase 5 and 6, but all of the scenes that he was in were the best parts of the film. The next positive I have is MODOK. I know this one is a pretty controversial topic. Like, some people hate him, some people love him. I really like the design that they went with. It's very comic book accurate. I know it looks a little bit weird in live action and a little bit fake at some points too, because it's really just a stretched version of Corey Stroll, so I totally understand the criticisms from the visual standpoint, but he does look comic book accurate, and I like the overall design. But at the same time, I do think that if they went the Marvel's Avengers video game route and used that design, I think that could have worked a little bit better. Besides that, though, I do like that they made MODOK Darren Cross from the first Ant-Man movie. It really just ties it all together. MODOK was really badass, he had some comedic lines, but I wish he did do a little bit more in the movie. They also do something with this character that I didn't really like, but overall was a good addition to the movie. Like, some people were really complaining about him, saying that he was, you know, being too comedic and ruining scenes that were really dramatic. I personally didn't find that. Like, I think there was maybe like one or two moments where something serious was happening and then he was joking, but other than that, I thought he was okay. Like, he's not the best part of the movie, but I think he was a welcome addition. My next positive is Janet. Now, she had a very big part in the overall story, which I wasn't expecting, and Michelle Pfeiffer had a really great performance as Janet Van Dyne. We got to discover what she did for 30 years in the quantum realm when she was stuck there. Some of the stuff was really interesting, and I found that she had some pretty funny moments regarding her past too. Next, I want to talk about Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. Another solid performance as Scott Lang, and I love him in this role. He's so charismatic and charming in this movie, and he had to be a dad to Cassie, but also a bit of a superhero mentor towards her too, which I thought was a really cool dynamic to add to their relationship. Next, let's talk about action, because in Quantumania, the action is a little bit over the top because they wanted this movie to be Avengers level, but I don't think it really works that great with Ant-Man as the focal point. For me, that's mostly because of the scale of the character in the quantum realm. When Ant-Man was on Earth, like, you can tell when he's big, when he's small, because of his environment, but the quantum realm is just kind of all over the place. There's so many different things happening, different size things all over the place, and I don't think you get as much of that spectacle when Ant-Man goes into Giant Man when he's in the quantum realm, especially because you can kind of tell that he's not actually big because they recorded this with these sound stages. So when he's big, he's really just like normal size in real life when they were filming this. I don't know if this really makes sense as I'm saying it. Just think of it like this, like they are in a CGI world, so when you're taking a character that's no longer in the real world and he goes like really big, really small, you don't really get that same sense of scope in terms of size because you don't have anything to really compare it to that you're familiar with in the real world. This sounds really messy, just like this movie, but that's the best way I can describe it. Overall though, the action was solid. Like, I think they did a pretty good job bringing some cool action set pieces and everything. I don't think the fight choreography was that great besides the Kang and Ant-Man fight. I thought that was pretty decent. Next, let's talk visuals because there's a lot of complaints for the CGI in this movie, but personally I thought it was actually pretty good. I would say about 80% of it looked amazing. Like, it actually looked really good, but then there was that 20% where I was kind of like, I don't know about this. It might have been due to the budget or something, because about 95% of this movie is in the quantum realm, which is automatically going to make it really expensive. Almost every single frame is going to have some bit of visual effects in it because they're not in a real location. So that makes the visuals in this movie very difficult to do because there's just so much CGI in it. And sometimes the CGI can kind of take you out of the movie, but overall I thought the visuals were actually pretty good. Now the next positive I have is world building, because they did a lot of it in this movie. Like Peyton Reed and whoever else worked on the whole environment of the quantum realm and all that, they did a lot of work. And I totally understand why people are saying that this movie feels like Star Wars, because I would say the first, maybe the second act of the movie too, truly felt like Star Wars. We get a lot of like weird and wacky characters just like we do in Star Wars all the time. We even have alien bartenders and everything. Like, it is super similar to Star Wars, which I think is totally fine. Like, I thought that was a cool angle to approach the quantum realm with. We've got whole civilizations, we've got rebels, we've got the Empire, which is Kang, and I really like the whole like Star Wars Marvel vibe that they were going with in this movie. But I do think some people are gonna think it's a little bit too much. Like, if you watch Ant-Man 1 and 2, like very small scale family superhero films, and then you watch Quantumania, you're gonna be like, what the heck is this? This is nothing like 1 and 2, which some people might not like and some people might. Me, I was totally fine with them making this like an Avengers level movie like they've been saying. I don't think they necessarily nailed the whole Avengers level film that they were going for, but I appreciate the attempt with all of the world building and the big action spectacles and all of that. But back to my world building point, I am a little bit concerned because I don't really know if all of that world building is going to pay off. Like, they do a lot of it. Like, the first act is my least favorite act because it was literally just like all world building for the quantum realm. But I'm just nervous that we're not really going to spend that much time in the quantum realm ever again, so it's all kind of for nothing. Obviously, I could be completely wrong, but I am a little bit worried. Like, I would like to go back to the quantum realm, I just don't know if we ever will. Okay guys, now on to my negatives. Now, there is quite a few. The first one is the first act. It was super messy. Things are just going 100 miles an hour just to get us to the quantum realm, and I would say like literally 10 minutes into the movie, we're already in the quantum realm. So I thought it was just moving a little bit too fast. It was a little bit clunky and all over the place. And like I said, that first act was like all Star Wars-y kind of world building, and I didn't really like it all that much. But once you get to Act 2, like as soon as Kang shows up, the movie really starts, in my opinion. Like, honestly, that first act, I was like, okay, whatever. But when Kang shows up in Act 2, you're like, yes, like the movie has started now. And it almost felt like two different movies. I know a few people have said this already. Like, basically Act 1 feels almost like a Star Wars movie, and then Act 2 turns into Quantumania like Kang and Ant-Man. It was a little bit strange. I didn't really like that first act, so that's my first negative. My next negative is Kang, and I know that's a little bit weird because I already said Kang was a positive, but he's also a negative in my review, and that's because I found him to be similar to Gorr in Thor: Love and Thunder, where the villain is really badass, and he states that he's done some really incredible things, like Kang says that he's killed a ton of Avengers, but I wanted them to actually show something, like even just a flashback, so that it's more believable. Because if he says that he's done all of these things, but then you never actually see it, it's very hard to get that true sense of danger. Because if he's killed a ton of variants of our strongest heroes, Ant-Man should be no problem at all, and the fact that Scott goes toe-to-toe with Kang in a hand-to-hand fight made no sense to me at all. Kang is a genius and a skilled fighter who would have learned techniques across all of time, and it shouldn't have been a competition against Ant-Man in a hand-to-hand fight. I truly think to establish Kang as the next huge MCU villain, he should have easily defeated the Ant family to show his power. My next negative is the script. There was a lot of really cringy moments that I just don't think worked for this movie. There were random jokes during dramatic moments, which I know isn't a new criticism for Marvel, and there was a lot of really lazy writing moments too in this movie where characters just say random one-line answers, and the line delivery felt like the actors were just reading the script and didn't really have any emotion behind it. For me, one of those characters that stands out is Cassie. Now, I love the character of Cassie, but I don't think the performance by Kathryn Newton was that great. Like, I don't know what was happening, but almost every single line that she said in this movie felt like she was just reading a script. Michael Douglas as Hank Pym had a few of those lines too in here, and I don't know what happened. I don't know if the script just wasn't good, or the performance from Kathryn Newton or Michael Douglas wasn't that good. I don't know what happened, but overall, I just wasn't really a big fan of a lot of the writing in this movie. I thought it was pretty weak, to be honest. Don't get me wrong though, there were some great moments, especially from Kang. I think performances from Jonathan Majors, Paul Rudd, and Michelle Pfeiffer were the top three. All of them had solid performances in this movie, but everyone else was just kind of there, and I think a lot of that has to do with the script. Now, one thing that just came to mind here that I really didn't like in the script was the big final battle is happening, and then Cassie and MODOK have a conversation in the middle of this huge battle. It felt really out of place. It was a really weird conversation too, and I don't know, like, Cassie in this movie, I don't know what happened. Like, just the performance, the writing, I don't know if it was a combination of both. I just didn't really like what her character had to do in here. She had a lot of the cringy moments in this movie. There was another moment where she's giving, like, this speech to a bunch of people, and I was like, oh man, this is really cringy. Like, I don't know about this. I do hope she has a great future in the MCU, of course. I think she's going to be a great young Avenger as Stature or Stinger, but to be completely honest, I wasn't a huge fan of her first appearance as a superhero in the MCU. There's one other negative that I want to say before I get into my final review, and that is that I think they underutilized Wasp in this movie, because the movie is literally called Ant-Man and the Wasp, but she's not in it that much. Like, she has some cool moments, she has some good dialogue, but if you're gonna put that character's name in the movie title, I think she needs to be in the movie a lot more. So guys, that is my spoiler-free review for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. My final rating for this film is going to be a 6.5 out of 10. I thought it was okay. This is definitely one of my least favorite MCU films. Like, I came out of the movie theater and I was like, oh man, like, I don't know about this movie. And there's really only a couple other movies in the MCU that have given me that feeling, and one of them was Thor: Love and Thunder that I saw not too long ago, and for Marvel to have two movies within the span of about a year that just weren't all that great is a little bit worrying, but I know they're on a massive course correct right now. Kevin Feige's trying to change everything, make it better, you know, not pump out as much content every single year and dilute everyone's excitement for the MCU. They're also gonna have more time to work on the projects and refine them and make them better, so I'm really excited for the future. I think Phase 5 is off to a little bit of a rocky start. I think Kang is gonna be amazing. Like, the performance from Jonathan Majors is really what made this movie. Like, if he wasn't as good as he was as Kang, this movie would have been like a 3-4 out of 10, but Kang really saved it. Also, there are 2 post-credit scenes for Quantumania, and they are really, really big, so definitely stay seated after the movie is over and watch those because they are going to get you really excited for the future of the MCU. But yeah, guys, I'm not gonna lie, I am pretty disappointed with this movie. Like, I thought it was gonna be one of the best MCU movies they've ever made. Like, the trailers alone made this thing look incredible. So when I went in there and I watched the movie, I was like, oh my goodness. I don't know what else to say, guys. This movie is pretty controversial. Like, a lot of people like it, a lot of people hate it, and I find the majority of people are kind of in the middle. Like, they like some things about it, but they really didn't like other things. Personally, I just had a lot of issues with a bunch of different things in this movie that made me not like it that much. I think I'm gonna go see this movie again next week to just sit down and try to absorb it all in again, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in this movie, and I want to see if I like it a little bit more, maybe even a little bit less, the same, I don't know. I don't really think my opinion's going to change, but who knows. But yeah, guys, that was my spoiler-free review. Let me know down below in the comments what you guys thought about the movie. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Or are you kind of where I'm standing, like right in the middle? If you guys are new to the channel, welcome, and I hope you guys subscribe and join the family. Other than that, I hope you guys all have a fantastic day, and I will see you guys in the next video.